This is, the time is 02 on this, the first day of June 2022. And I call this the meeting of the Laredo College Board of Trustees to order. I can have trustee say the prayer and
Loving and gracious God, you're indeed the giver of all good gifts. And we thank you today for all your blessings, for the successful outcomes of our college events, for all of our faculty, our staff, and most importantly, our students. We ask that you bless them abundantly as we continue to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage, and strength. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions that we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and most importantly, their confidence in our leadership. Give us the insight to lead with integrity so that our decisions may reflect what is right and what is good. Dear Lord, grant us the humility to always seek your will in all that we do, in all that we say. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, Madam Chair. Lupita Cepeda,
Present.
Jorge Delgado, present. Jackie Lemon Ramos. Absent. Cynthia Mares. Absent. Mercurio Martinez Jr.
Present.
Dr. Henry Carranza. Esteban Rangel. Absent. Ms. Karina Elizondo.
Present.
Tita Catubela. Here. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have public testimony? Thank you. The next item is discussion and possible action. We have 4A, April 2022 financial report. Mr. Cesar Vela and Ms. Linda Gomez. Mr. Vela.
Yes, good evening, board members. Sorry, can you guys hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Good evening, board members. I apologize for not being presently there at the board room. I have been a little bit sick and I just wanted to take all the separate precautions. I'm going to defer this item to Linda Bowman, Director of Accounting. She will be making the presentation for the April 2022 financial report. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Tahina, Dr. Ramirez, Linda Gomez for the Director of Accounting. I'm here to present the April 2022 financial report.
Can you text Waldo so he can switch to the other
The
webcam,
general
please?
operating fund revenues. State appropriations, we collected.
Yeah. So the one in
6.9
front of
million,
Linda?
which is 62% of the budget. We're in April, so we still have 4 months to go. So we will be collecting the remainder of the balance of $4 million. Local funds. Local funds, we collected 38.4 million, which is 102% of our budget of 37.4 million. We will be collecting 99%. We will soon to collect 99% of the budget. We still have one more payment for the bond. So, yeah, we're going to collect 99%, more or less. Other funds, we've collected 414,000, which is 8.4% of the budget. We still have to acknowledge or post the higher education emergency relief fund towards the end of the year. I can't see the bottom. So overall, in the general relief fund as of April, we've collected 55.6 million, which is 90%
Which one?
of the budget, which is 61.7 million. We'll go through the expenses. On the expenses, total expenses expensed as of April have been 36.73 million, which is 58% of the budget of 61 million budget. Any questions? So far?
Any questions?
Yes.
Chair recognizes Ms. Elizondo.
Defer that to Mr. Vela.
Did you hear the question, Mr. Vela?
Yes, right now, for fall and spring semester, we're projecting that, we will be, recording, approximately just for the tuition waiver, the 4.2 million that we had budgeted for. Right now, we're just finalizing the spring numbers. But we will be, recording that, entry, to charge her funding for the tuition waivers of 4.2 million. Now, for this coming fall semester, we do have an allocation already identified of approximately 2.6 million that will be used for tuition waivers for the fall semester. That is an item that we are going to bring to the board at the June 30th meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions? Chair recognizes Mrs. Ramos in attendance and Mr. Rangel.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for joining us.
We're going, special appropriations, we have revenues of 105,000 and expenditures of 130,000. Right now, we have a net change to the fund balance, which is a negative 25,000 due to the state appropriations that we collect them on a monthly basis. So we still have the 4 months to collect the funds. On auxiliary fund services, we have revenues of 1.2 million, which is a 96.2% of the budget, and expenditures at 503,000. And net change on the fund balance is 774,000. Restricted funds, as we expense the restricted funds, which we've already expensed 32.1 million, as we expense, we request the funding from the grants. So it washes out the revenue versus expenditures. Facilities master plan, beginning balance is 21.9 million. We have interest revenue of 91,000, expenditures of 2.3, a net change of a negative 2.2, and our balance as of April is $19.6 million.
Madam Chair.
Chair recognizes Mr. Rangel.
And that's on all the phases, right? That's the amount that we have, or is that in a certain phase?
The 19 million is for the remaining projects. I know Mr. Vela had provided you with the upcoming projects.
They're coming. Thank you. I didn't see them. Sorry.
Property taxes. As of April, we've collected 38.1 million, which is 95.3% of the levy, of our levy. And the fund balance as of April, it's $14.3 million. You will see that there's a 2.4 million subtraction of the fund addition fund deletions. That was approved by the board to move it to the plant fund for the deferred maintenance projects.
Can you repeat that?
The 2.4 million was moved from the general operating fund, approved by the board, for the deferred maintenance projects for the whole college.
Thank you. For both campuses,
For
right?
both campuses, yes.
Questions?
Monthly investment report, we have deposits of 100 million. Oh, yes. Investment pool, 18 million. So for a total investment of $119 million. And we have the yields right there from the money market, 0.65 basis. The investment pool, 0.28, and, oh, sorry, and the other pool, 0.23.
Out of that, Madam
Chair
Chair,
recognizes Mr. Martinez.
out of that $119 million, how much of that is actually a fund balance?
The fund balance for the general operating fund, as I mentioned,
What percentage is that?
I don't have that. I don't have a calculator. Right now, we have about above the 20%.
How much, I'm sorry?
Above the 20%.
Above the 20.
Above the 20%.
How much is that above?
If I may?
Yes, Mr. Vela?
Yes, if we look at the fund balance on a cash basis, if you look at your presentation there, as of the end of 2021, we had 56,722,611 on cash in our bank accounts. However, again, if we look at the fund balance with the liabilities that we currently have to record for our pension and health insurance, our fund balance currently stands at a negative 2,545,744. We projected at the end of this year, we are actually going to have a positive fund balance already, again, including those those liabilities that are owed to the state. But currently, right now, we look at the cash basis, we got 56.7 million just for operations. So that is way above the 20% requirement that the board passed on a resolution. Again, but we do need to take into account that that 56 million are currently accounted for in case the state does come back and charge us the amounts that are currently set aside for the pension and the health insurance for retirees. Any questions on that one, I am?
Mr. Martinez?
My main reason why I continue to stress that is because fund balance plays a major role in the credit rating of our bonds. We are one of the very few community colleges, probably even some state universities, that have a AAA credit rating. And the reason why is because we have always had a very strong fund balance in addition to a balanced budget. And I think it is important for us to maintain a strong fund balance in order for us to continue with AAA, at least a minimum. Part of the reason why we are able to get Laredo College, when we sell these bonds at an incredibly low interest rate, is because of the credit and the AAA rating that this institution has. Actually, we stand above many, if not majority, of community colleges throughout the state. And I think it is very important, and I know, Mr. Vela, you are very much aware of this. We have to make sure that we maintain a strong fund balance so that we will continue to have the kind of credit rating from Moody's, from Fitch, and the three financial institutions out of New York. It's important.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Vela, do you have our fund ratings by chance?
Yes, we do have those, yes, we do have the bond ratings, that are, provided by the rating agencies. As a matter of fact, they're included in our annual financial report, as part of the information that's provided to the public.
Mhm.
Let me get the information. Yeah, we are currently right now, when we look at the, college's bond ratings, for Moody's, revenue bonds are rated at A2. Fitch revenue bonds are AA minus, S&P global ratings at A. Now, these are the revenue bonds. Again, the revenue bonds have a lower rating. Excuse me, our geo, bonds are rated higher. Again, because of those are backed by our tax rates. But our ratings, when it comes to the revenue bonds, again, all three rating agencies, again, revenue bonds at A2, revenue bonds at AA minus, and S&P global ratings at A. And again, there are at the top tier when we look at the ratings. And recently, we did receive an upgrade just this year due to the insurance company that we have that is backing up our bonds on the revenue side being upgraded too. We have not received that rating yet, but our financial advisor will be sending us that information.
So then so we don't have a AAA like we used to. Is that correct?
Not on the.
Down to AA minus?
Yes, not on the revenue bonds. We do have a higher rating on the general obligation bonds, but not at the AAA rating at this time.
Madam Chair.
Chair recognizes Mr. Rangel.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to go ahead and comment that, you know, I think I do concur with the judge. We do have a good rating and everything, but a lot of this, and we go through it in the building meeting, we have bonds that are very outdated, very, very outdated. I'm talking about 5, 6, 7-year bonds that we need to find this budget year. We need to allocate them to certain projects and finish those monies, because I do know for a fact, because it, you know, when we talk to our financial advisors, they emphasize that it does hurt your credit rating. So that's something that we as a board need to be looking at this upcoming budget, to being able to see where we're gonna allocate that money of those bonds, because we do need to finish them, and because we are getting penalized for them at an annual basis.
Anything else? Any questions? Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Gomez.
Thank you.
The next item is 4B, Texas Association of School Boards, TASB, pay maintenance recommendations, Mr. Cesar Vela.
Yes, good evening, board members. Tonight, joining us via Zoom, we have Ms. Luz Cadena. She's a senior HR and compensation consultant with the Texas Association of School Boards. They're currently the firm that we contract out to do our compensation study. So tonight, Ms. Cadena is joining us to update the board on the college's compensation plan and also to make some recommendations for this coming fiscal year. Ms. Elena?
I think you're muted, Ms. Cadena. We can't hear you.
Ms. Elena?
Oh. It shows that we have her muted. Yeah, at the top.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes?
Yes.
Awesome, all right. Good, I'm glad I was able to fix that technical issue. What I want to say is thank you so much for having me present this overview of the pay maintenance that we've conducted for the college. And, please let me know if you have any questions. We do have a PowerPoint presentation that I think that I will be able to share. And let me see if I can maneuver this. I'll go into the, I'll share my screen possibly. Let's see. I think you're watching, I need you to see the full presentation, right? So you're watching the slide right now. And make sure I've got the right page.
Where it says display settings,
Yes.
the top. Over your left, please. Over your left. Right there. Duplicate from the bottom.
Oh, duplicate. Got it, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, really appreciate it. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. What I wanted to highlight is really the process that we do in beginning the review. So we basically do the data collection. We collect all of the employee data. We hold a kickoff call with administration where we identify really priorities that we want to address, pay concerns, pay issues, continuing areas of concern, and to ensure a clear understanding of the objectives that we want to achieve for this study, right? Then we began to review the market data, which we'll take a look at those peers that we do the market comparison with. And we take your college jobs and we match them to these benchmark or survey jobs for market comparison. And then ultimately, we build or realign your pay structures, reconnecting them to the market values. Then we're able to provide pay increase cost models based on the realignment of the structures and recommendations for improvement in pay. The next item that I wanted to note here is really the market pay strategy that has been implemented as we designed this market-based pay system for the college. What this means is that the midpoints, which become those target rates of pay, are designed based on the market value from your peer group for jobs, those benchmark jobs, as well as college goals and the financial resources. We set range parameters, which are your range minimums, your range midpoints, and your range maximums. Your midpoint value is going to be that target rate of pay or that median value for the benchmark jobs in the pay grades or for the benchmark years when we're looking at faculty pay. And the ultimate goal is to pay employees as close to the target rate of pay or the midpoint value within 10% of market. For faculty pay, we want to be as close to market for those key benchmark years that we're going to look at. And then for individual pay for the admin professionals when you're classified, over time, we want to try to get to within that 90% of market as much as possible within your resources. And lastly, your target rate of pay is adjusted regularly. These are your midpoint. This is your midpoint value. We need to adjust this on a regular basis to keep the district's pay structures connected to market. Market moves every year, and so the intent is to keep those pay structures that contain the pay ranges for each of those pay grades within the structure connected to the market value of those benchmark jobs. So we're going to talk about the peers that we've used for market comparison. These are the same set of peers that we used last year. You can see that we've got Alamo colleges. They did not participate in our survey, although we were able to get their faculty schedule for comparisons for the faculty comparison. We have Austin Community College, Lynn College, Del Mar, El Paso Community College. And for non-faculty jobs, we're able to look at Laredo ISD. We have Midland College, North Central Texas College, South Texas College, Texas Southmost College, and then United ISD for non-faculty jobs. So that would be for your admin professional and your classified positions that we're able to take a look at what they pay for those benchmark jobs and compare your jobs to those. We also use third-party salary surveys that we purchase. These are Economic Research Institute and Comp Analysts, and these are specific to the Laredo area. What I also want to mention is that when we do the market comparisons, we're looking at the market median values. So as we noted in the list of those peer districts, or those peer colleges, right? There may be some whose pay is higher, some whose pay is lower. But using the market median value gives us the middlemost data point within that sorted list, and that is the value that we use. We do not use averages for our market comparisons. So we're going to start with faculty pay, and our comparisons begins with a master's degree. And the pay at 5-year increments or 5-year benchmarks that we survey. We have the comparison to pay. Laredo College starting salary for masters on faculty is $46,500. The local market median or the median of those colleges that we identified in the previous slide is $45,185. So your starting pay is 3% above the median value for faculty pay, or $1,315. When we look at the 5-year comparison, this percentage comparison decreases slightly, and it's 3% below market, right? You're more competitive at the starting salary, and you are at least competitive to the market comparison overall at the 20-year mark, which is at 96% or 4% below. This is a $2,528 variance from that market median. The college there was a decrease in the overall comparison in pay from the previous year, which was anywhere from about 2 to 4 percentage points across these 5-year benchmarks. The college did an exceptional job with that 5% increase. I think it was mid-year, and then was not able to give a pay increase for the 21-22 school year. And so that kind of has impacted, right, some of the comparisons, or at least the dip in the comparisons that we're seeing here relative to the market medians. So this is the master's degree faculty comparison. You can see here, which is the table that supports the comparison that we just saw on that table with the slide previously. We can see the list of the peer colleges sorted from the highest paying at a 0-year salary to the lowest paying at the 0-year salary, and where you fall relative to the median value. This is that red line here. So the median value is 45,185. Your starting salary is 46,500. So you're right above 3%, and that's where you fall starting salary. And then you can see the values that were reported at these 5-year increments that we capture. And the comparisons as a percentage to the 5-year increments that we just reviewed on that table there. So again, competitive at that 10-year mark, 99%, 97% at year 5 and year 15, and then at year 20, 96% mark comparison. The next slide, this is how you compare for doctorate and still faculty pay. So in this comparison here, you can see that pay is competitive at starting, is 4% above, and then you dip a little bit at that 5-year mark. You're at 95% below market. That's $2,658. And you improve at that 10 and 15-year mark to 97%. That's $1,636 to $1,904 below that market median. And then at 20-year mark at 95%. So we're going to talk about the recommendations and in a few slides later, which would include the increase and some adjustments to improve the upper part of the faculty schedule, where we're seeing the least or the weakest comparison to the market. We also reviewed how the college pay compares to the benchmark jobs for the administrators, for professionals, right? For your classified, your clerical, your paraprofessional group, and your maintenance. So as a group overall, your administrators are paid at 96% of market. That's 24 jobs, college jobs that we were able to match to our survey jobs. And on average, the salary comparisons are at 96% or 4% below. We also look at how your current range structures are connected to the market values, because that's, remember, we have a market-based pay system, and we have to keep those pay ranges connected to the market values for competitive pay ranges. And so those are at 99%. Small adjustments in the realignment of structures, but we don't have to make big structure adjustments like we did when we first started working with the college. For the professionals, we're looking at 24 benchmarks as well. These are college jobs. And overall, that comparison is at 93% of market or 7% below. And the midpoint values for this group are at 99% of market. So still fairly connected as a group to the market, with some small adjustments made at certain ranges to ensure that you're still connected to that market value. And then for your clerical paraprofessional, you can see here at 93%, there's 18 college jobs that we match to our survey jobs, and pay overall is 7% below market for this group. You can see that the structure connection to the market is consistent pretty much for these three groups, with maintenance and operations being the one group that has the weakest connection to market values at 9% below overall. And then the midpoint values being at 97% of market. That's a 3% below market value overall. And there's 11 of those jobs that we were able to match to our survey jobs. Please note that these are all just base pay comparisons. So we're looking at annual salaries for the administrators and the professionals, and hourly rate comparisons for the classified group. So we're going to talk about the recommendations that have been provided. And this is a 3% general pay increase to staff. So this includes, again, as I mentioned, the realignment of the pay structures, or reconnecting your midpoints to the market value and adjusting those starting rates of pay. An increase, continued adjustment and increasing the starting rates of pay is going to be critical, particularly for your classified hourly employees. That has been, there's been a lot of external pressure to have starting rates of pay competitive for hourly employees, particularly those lowest level pay grades that we have. For your faculty, in addition to the 3% pay increase, which equates to $1,880 for masters, we also have additional adjustments at key benchmark years to improve the position of pay relative to market. These are, again, as I mentioned, the adjustments are targeting more the upper part of the range of pay for faculty, so that we can improve that market position for the 10, 15, and 20-year mark. So you can see the adjustments 3 to 5 years and 12 to 24 years. Then we also provide adjustments. These are additional adjustments to employees to ensure that pay for employees is at least 1% above the new range minimums, if the 3% general pay increase is not enough to get them there. So for some, they would need this additional adjustment so that their pay is 1% above the new range minimum. And if you hire someone new, there is a little bit of a separation for an incumbent that has been with you 1 year versus someone brand new. We also provide an additional 1% range midpoint adjustment for employees who continue to be paid below 90% of the new range midpoint. And this is to ensure that we move employees that are basically clustered at the bottom or the entry of the range. This is to move them a little bit faster through the range because, over time, you want pay to get closer to that target rate that is that market value from your peer groups. And this does not take them to 90% of market. It's just an additional 1% of range midpoint that helps move their pay a little bit faster. And then we also model placement scale adjustments to alleviate pay compression for classified employees. As we raise that starting rate of pay, what we have proposed here is improving the starting rate of pay for your classified from to $10.50 an hour, from $10 an hour. But as we raise that starting rate of pay, we need to make sure that we spread the pay of employees based on their experience. And this is over 20 years, so that someone with 5 years is still making more than a 0-year person. And that way we maintain value of that experience that the employee has with the college. What I wanted to illustrate on here, and I added this slide here, right after I sent my PowerPoint. So, but I wanted to show or illustrate how the proposed 3% faculty schedule will compare to the current market comparison for the college. So what we see here is the median value or the median faculty pay, and this is master's degree. And this is the college current hiring schedule for faculty masters. The 3% you can see will at least align really close to the current market position at each of these 5-year benchmarks. Now, we know that colleges are going to give an increase. I'm working with several colleges this year, and they're all in the same budget process or cycle right now. So there is consideration for pay increases. We don't know, how much each one is going to provide, but we know that the market is going to shift. And so while this shows you at least being able to set that master's really close to the median at each of these 5-year benchmarks, we know that that's going to shift some after the pay increases are improved. So I also wanted to show what your schedule would look like after we adjust the masters. We use the masters as a means to connect that to market, and then index the bachelor's and the associates and the doctorates off of the masters. So this is how we create this, and this illustrates really the pay for the faculty and the starting salaries, as I mentioned, for masters. Proposed starting salary is $48,000. For your doctorate, proposed starting salary is $52,800, and the schedule is adjusted at the years from 0 through 25. This only shows 0 to 20 and then the last at 25 because I just can't paste the whole schedule or the whole hiring plan and it be legible. But you can see here what that would look like. The pay ranges that we show here, again, this is the minimum, the midpoint, and the maximum of the pay range for your faculty schedule, and the salary increase that would be calculated is the 3% off of the midpoint value of these different categories or degree categories. So as I mentioned, masters for 9 months, $1,880. And then bachelors would be calculated based on this midpoint of 61.95, associates for this midpoint of 60-40, and then you can see that doctorate would be receiving a little bit higher amount because 3% would be calculated based on 69.95. Then, as we generally recommend, increasing the pay of employees that are paid above the range maximum. It helps contain the variance in pay for individuals performing the same job. And that is a recommendation that we include in our pay reviews. So as I mentioned, the 3% general pay increase and what this would look like, we can see here that the 3% pay increase equates to a $936,485 increase overall, this is a 3.2% increase to your current at least payroll budget. And then we have these adjustments. So the 59,825, which is the largest cost, is for your faculty, and it is those adjustments to improve the top of the range, right, the middle to the top of the range for your faculty. So those adjustments at the proposed 12 through 24 years on the schedule. We have adjustments for the administrative professionals, and so these include the additional 1% of the range midpoint for those that continue to be paid below 90% of the new range midpoint values, as well as the adjustments to ensure that employees are paid at least 1% above the new range minimum. And for your classified, we have a cost of $29,869. And these are those placement scale adjustments that alleviate the pay compression as we raise that starting salary and spread pay across 20 years from minimum to midpoint. Then we can see that the total cost here, we have a little over $1,053,917 as a total cost that includes the general pay increase as well as the adjustments. And this is a 3.6% increase to your current payroll budget. And this is all that I have. If you have questions, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to provide any additional information as well.
Any questions? Chair recognizes Ms. Ramos.
I have several questions for Mr. Vela. Mr. Vela, what is the average years of service for our faculty?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear that.
The question was for Mr. Vela. What is the average years of service for our faculty? What section do they most of them fall under? Do they fall under the 0 to 5, the 10 and up, or how many do we have? First of all, how many faculty members do we have? What's the ballpark figure for the number?
Okay, so if you can see here, so the comparison, so I brought up this slide because I think that I think will answer your question or part of your.
So we have 79, right?
The count. So this is for masters alone. It's 79, right?
79 with masters.
So you're wanting to know the total number of faculty.
Right.
I think that we may have that in the first, this is just the enrollment number here. That's your master's, your doctorate are 33.
And your bachelor's.
I would have to provide you at least based on our data. I would have to follow up with the count. I don't have that total count. Other than if we take a look at the report, which, one second, wonder if
Ms. Cadena, we can put that question for Mr. Vela to answer at the next session, but there was another question that I had. Who is paid at less than 90%? How many people are we talking about? You mentioned on number 4 on that slide, go to the next slide. You said that the additional 1%, the next one.
yes.
Additional 1% range midpoint adjustment for staff paid below 90%. How many people are we talking about that are paid below the 90%?
Okay, the additional 1% range midpoint adjustment. So the count that we have here is going to be, let me take a look at my costs here. So we have 104, no, that's on the classified, I'm sorry, 37 administrative or administrators professionals that would be receiving an additional 1% midpoint increase. Those are the ones that are still below 90% of the new range midpoint value.
Administrative professionals, right? And any other subgroup? Any other subgroup besides that, administrative professionals?
I'm having trouble hearing, I'm sorry, was there another question?
The question was, administrative professionals, and what is another subgroup available that would meet that criteria? Or 37 is the amount for the meeting the less than 90%?
So 37 would be receiving an additional 1% adjustment. 4 are receiving a small adjustment to ensure that they're 1% above the new range minimum for the cost of $27,660, right? So we've got this right here. So, oops, sorry. The $27,660, I can't say that. The $27,660 cost is for the 1% range midpoint adjustment plus the $78 cost to ensure that employees are paid no less than 1% above the new range minimum for a cost of $27,738. So that $27,738 represents the chunk of the cost for the additional 1% of midpoint adjustment. I think that was your question. Hopefully that.
More or less, but I think I have some more questions for Mr. Vela, but I'll write them down and put them up on an email, Mr. Vela, because we need to have a clear clarification. But my last, and I just want to put this on the record, when we talk about other colleges, we can talk about how much they get paid. But every single college has a different tax base. Del Mar College has oil and refinery that is, that is infused into their budget. There's other colleges out there. I just want to make sure that we understand what we're working with. We're working with our tax base. We're working our limited tax base of the city of Laredo. We're also working with the legislative funding. And also we're working with the taxes itself. So we need to look at that also. I can see that there's a comparison, but no one comes near to the numbers that we're at, maybe to the 90% or somewhere else, but I don't see any of the other ones. I would like to, when we talk about this further as we go along, I would like to see other colleges participate, or not necessarily participate, but be able to gather the information and the data from them, because those are not the only colleges available. Those are the colleges that answered your survey or your questionnaire to participate in this survey. So we really need to take a look at that also, and look at what is the tax base for Del Mar College, what is the tax base for Alamo colleges. Yes, they're paid less, but they have more students, and so I just wanted that to be placed on the record, because we also need to consider the recommendation right now is freeze pay rates of the employees above their pay range. We've had this discussion for 3 years in a row already, and last year we didn't have it because of the COVID, but we need to really sit down and talk about that, because if the recommendation is already to freeze the pay rates of those employees above their pay range, that is a topic for discussion. I don't want to be waiting until the last minute.
Let me just recognize our interim, Dr. Tejerina. She was going to answer part of your question.
Dr. Tejerina, interim president. So to address how many faculty we have 176 full-time. And I believe that to answer your question and why those colleges, school districts, is because theoretically that's where we lose employees to, in the surrounding areas. So yes, we can include TAC also has salary summaries that they do on a yearly basis. But I'm sure Luz has those, but those are the regional areas that our employees tend to leave or go to.
And, yeah, Mr.
Or
President, I ask
comments.
Dr. Tina, so when we talked about 3 years ago, we talked about a certain number of employees that had already capped. So I believe that I would like to ask for the board or I would like to see the list again. So how many people have left? How many people are we left with? Because at that time, we had about 25 that were capped.
Right.
And they were from the administration, from the faculty, and also from the the classified. So we had it more or less, it was about 20. Well, but I'm talking about the faculty. There were 25, about 25 faculty at that time. And then there were the others that fell under the other groups. So how much has changed from the time that we talked about it last time? And what's the difference? Because the question is gonna be, don't forget about us, because that was a question 2 years ago, 3 years ago, don't forget about us. I would like to see what are we putting on the table? I mean.
What are we doing for him?
May I?
I have Mr. Martinez and then Mr. Delgado and then Doctor, and then Ms. Elizondo. Go ahead, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Cadena, our problem is, and I'm sure you're very much aware of it, we probably are the only community college that is limited in its tax base. The majority of the colleges that are basically identified with our organization, so to speak, most of them, if not all of them, are actually, their tax base is countywide. That is certainly not the case with us. We are limited within the city limits of the city of Laredo. And we can only grow when the city of Laredo, through the city council, extends its city limits. Then that's when we are allowed to follow and actually then become part of that tax base. So from that point of view, we are in a rather situation that places a burden on our institution and of course on our taxpayers. If we were to be in the situation where other colleges are, where they actually have the entire county, then our tax base certainly could be dropped considerably, but at the same time generate a far greater revenue than unfortunately that is the case here today. This particular county, to be specific, is one of the larger counties in the entire state of Texas. And we have in excess of 2 million acres of land, so to speak. Yet that is certainly not the tax base. We are limited within the city limits of the city of Laredo. And that is our problem. And as such, of course, we cannot extend, so to speak. It'd be great if we were to be countywide, but that is, of course, that is not the case. And that is really our problem. Just FYI, ma'am.
Thank you. I do recall, I think, from, early on, when we first started, that was, one of the challenges for the college, was, clearly the boundary and the tax base. So just briefly, in response to the peers, yes, we have some colleges in there, most colleges that are not in the situation that you are based on tax base and boundaries. But I also wanted to mention that, we use the median, and while we have those peer groups, using the median is really it eliminates at least those outliers, those anomalies, those high salaries, and low salaries, and we're looking at really what are the middlemost set of data points or salaries that are paid. So that's another thing that I wanted to point out. And yes, we use these colleges because it's those that have been identified that are peers for your college. And we have the data. We have the survey data based on their participation, and which we review and we vet. And we pride ourselves in reviewing the data and ensuring that it is it's clean, and we can use it for comparison purposes. So, and one last thing I just wanted to point out, which is really no different between, colleges and school districts that we work with, is that, we'll have school districts who the funding that they receive is based on enrollment. And, their funding levels are likely not the same as peers that surround them, but they still have to compete with the same base. They still have to compete for teachers. You still have to compete for faculty. So while the tax base is critical, because that's how that's your funding resource, just keep in mind that, you're having to compete with everybody else for talent that's nowadays, hard to find. We've got, employee shortages out there. And then we've got this external pressure to improve the starting rate of pay for those lowest pay grades. So hourly rate, lowest pay grades. So just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Delgado.
Ms. Cadena, thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Cadena, with regards to the survey, why isn't it taken into consideration with regards to the budget size of the institutions, aside from just enrollment? Noticing several of the college and some of the comments that have been made by my colleagues, several of the budgets that are included in some of those institutions exceed over 100 million. There's 3 of them that exceed over 400 million. So while you say that we have to compete with other institutions, how is it fair to, I guess, provide somewhat of a faulty survey? Because if we're going to be compared to some of the institutions that have budgets over $400 million, well, then we're never going to be able to compete.
To a point, keep in mind that, they have more staff. So yes, there is a difference, but they also have more staff. And so while their budget size is larger, they're having to employ more. And so at the end of the day, it could be that on a ratio of let's say students and faculty and programs, it could be that there's a difference, but the difference is not as large as we would think.
So, and my next question would be with regards to the enrollment numbers, are those traditional students or are those split up between dual enrollment students? Or is that just the base enrollment number that is provided to you by the institutions?
So those are the enrollment numbers that are provided to us. We request that the numbers be for your traditional students for the most part. And keep in mind that those numbers, our survey is conducted in, I think that November, we begin October, November. So that's kind of a snapshot in time of when that survey data is submitted to us.
So it doesn't include, as far as the breakdown for student enrollment students?
I didn't get that.
It doesn't include any type of breakdown as far as the type of students that are enrolled in those institutions?
No, we just get the total. And the total that we request is the total of your traditional student count.
Is that something that we can include in future surveys to make sure that we have a complete survey?
Could you repeat that?
That number of traditional students. All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair recognizes Dr. Carranza.
Well, it's a little bit too late anyway, but I agree with Mr. Martinez. what Ms. Martinez said is correct as far as the district. We don't have the county. And if you don't have the county, you lose a lot of money. At one time, as we did, I think I told you about 3 years ago, I told you that, one of the major problems is the population that you chose. There was no way that we can compare with them. They have other sources like you just finished saying. And your student enrollment is totally different compared to other cities. And we're very lucky to have what we have. Now, as far as the salaries is concerned, we're getting there, but if we don't have a high enrollment, we won't get there either. TASB has chosen a certain population, and I know that population already because I looked it over 3 years ago, and it's the same one. And yes, I hear what you're saying, but it is not what is happening here. We have a different population. We don't have the type of monies that a lot of these other smaller cities have. And that's what we have to be careful how we spend our monies. But right now, yes, I look at all the numbers here, but in the long run, they're not going to stand up. Right now, it's okay to dance around the bushes or on the tulips, but right now, we just tell us for sure this is what you need and this is where you need to go. Not talk, because that's all we're doing. Okay.
Chair recognizes Ms. Elizondo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Cadena, can you further explain the market comparison analysis for the maintenance and operations pay group? I noticed that the employee paid to market at 91%.
I'm so sorry. Could you know that, please?
If you could please further explain on the market comparison analysis that was provided to us on the pay group for the maintenance and operations pay group. I noticed that the employee paid to market, it's at 91%. It's the lowest from all the chart.
Sure. So as you know, there's 11 jobs that we were able to compare to the median market value for within the peer group that we included, right, that we talked about, as well as the 2 school districts. So the 2 school districts were used for comparison and pay. Administrators, professionals, and your classified, your clerical, and your maintenance and operations. The market for these jobs is moving. We're going to see a shift in the starting rate of pay for these positions increasing for next year. We anticipate that in our work across the state. That has been a major focus of school boards to improve or raise the floor of pay for these jobs. So your question as to the pay comparison for this group overall is at 9% below. We have been working over the past, since we started in 2017-18, in improving the pay for this group. In fact, when I was taking a look at this, when we started, the starting rate of pay for these jobs was $8.32. The proposed is $10.50. That is a 26% improvement in pay since we started working with the college. It's, as I've mentioned, the pressure to make the improvement in pay for this group is there. And we've done it in a very strategic and conservative manner. Where we have focused on, at least from the administration's point, as we planned this to be strategic, to make the adjustments but make them in a sustainable manner so that we can get these rates of pay a little bit more competitive.
Well, what is the recommendation at this point for this particular pay group? An increase of 1%?
That, what is the recommendation I mean, as I mentioned, there is the recommendation of that 3% general pay increase. But this, the employees here for maintenance and operations, when we look at the cost, and take you to the cost page, the overall cost page here. And so for these positions here, the 29,869, these are adjustments that are added on top of that 3% general pay increase, so that we can spread the pay of individuals based on their experience, and it increases their rate of pay some. But the $292,095 is that 3%. The 29,869 is the cost of the place and scale adjustments, plus ensuring that we get everyone to be at least 1% above that $10.50 proposed starting salary for the group.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Rangel.
Thank you. So yeah, as a couple of questions have been answered based on everybody's comments. So I also do want to see that list of the people that are capped. Like Ms. Ramos said, I think it's very important that we look at that current list. And also, like she mentioned, where we were at, was it 2 years ago, to where we're at today, how much it has decreased or maybe increased the people maybe that have already met their full capacity of pay. So we could get that list as well. And then touching base, as Ms. Elizondo was saying, on the maintenance, I do understand, and this is a problem that is happening, and I'm thinking throughout the state with the minimum wage pay. I think it's very important that we do focus a lot on that. And the reason for it is because I do foresee that a lot of maybe people that might have a bachelor's, a master's, or a doctorate could probably move or get another type of job. But the people that earn $8, $9 an hour are probably not going to leave. They're probably going to end up staying here in Laredo. So we need to look at, and like Ms. Cadena said, it's an ongoing issue throughout the state. Do I go work for a government entity for $8, or do I go work at McDonald's for $15? So that's something that we do need to tackle. I think 1050 is barely doing justice. I think we need to look at it a lot more, because 1050 right now will not get you anything, especially for these types of jobs. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Tijerina, it's probably a huge turnover of employees that we have. And I'm saying, I'm just talking about even from where I work at, from even speaking to people at United ISD, it's turnover after turnover, and we cannot keep them because of the pay. There's no way we could keep them at $8. So I think that needs to be a huge focus of this, if there is going to be some type of approval. That has to be taken into account, because 1050 will not even put a dent into what we're facing, for all these people that earn an hourly wage. That's my opinion.
Chair recognizes Mrs. Vela.
It's just really sad, because I remember when we started looking at this, I just don't see where it's been that drastic of a change at all. And it's very, very sad that, we're in this position that we are. It really is. I wish that we could do something. I don't know, because there's no incentive. I mean, and that's right. It really hasn't changed. I mean, a tiny bit. What, 1 year? 1 year we gave a good raise, and that was only because of why?
I believe it was a 5%.
That was it. I mean, since then, last year, they didn't get anything.
Last year.
We gave them
did
that, well, it wasn't a bonus, we had to call it a stipend or something. It was a stipend, but it's a one-time thing. I mean, that was it, just a one-time thing.
Chair recognizes Dr. Tijerina.
Marisa Tijerina, interim president. What we could do, members of the board, is what I would recommend, because I did with Cesar and the executive team and with the documents Lou sent us, if we don't go with a 3% overall, we're gonna fall back into that bigger gap, right? So the recommendation is 3% to not fall into a bigger trap, right, with the gap. What we could do to address the staff concern is those adjustments that you see are add-ons, right? So in the first column, you see the 3% cost, right, for all employees. And then the adjustment, what we could do is work with Ms. Cadena on further adjustments that can be made to elevate that percentage, if that's the wishes of the board. And see also then on the budget, unless Cesar has another
Real quick, just to
opinion.
ask a question on that, may I, Chair?
Chair recognizes.
So
Mr.
thank you, on the adjustment, but correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know this, are the adjustments just being done, but I'm thinking about certain individuals, not
Right.
everybody. So see, I don't think it's defeating the purpose. No, it's not. We are helping a certain amount of employees that are going to get adjusted on top of the 3%. But we're not defeating the issue, which is we're gonna be facing this issue next year again if we do not pick up I guess the minimum pay. So I think that's what needs to be, I think this is a good thing, like you said, it's the 3% and then the adjustments. And I understand, and I think that was one of the questions that Ms. Ramos was asking was on the professionals, how many people were going to get adjusted, but I guess the next question that she was asking, correct me if I'm wrong, was how many, and another division, which is right here, the 29,869 are in the classified, how many employees are going to be, are in that category? So, but again, I guess this is a good thing, but we're not focusing on the issue of like, like where are we gonna be at with pay? 1050, I still think it's very low right now. I don't think we could be able to have people come in and be here for 3, 5, 10, 15-year longevity. People are looking for, they're going out to McDonald's and HEB and Starbucks and all this. So, McDonald's at $15 an hour. So I'm not saying, we have to go all the way to 15, but we need to, we need to be somewhat, compatible with those types of pays. So, that's just my, food for thought.
Chair recognizes Mrs. Ramos.
I agree with Mr. Angel. Oh, you want to talk? Go ahead. I agree with Mr. Angel. There needs to be a median, but we cannot forget the benefits that we provide to our employees. A lot of our employees are here also because of the benefits, right? And we need to find a median for the rate of inflation, because right now it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we need to find a median where we know we will be able to retain the employee because it's employees, but that employee, because under the classified section, the 29,000 is an adjustment, right? So it's an adjustment to the particular individuals that are below the 90%, the 91%. So there's not that many, but we need to find a middle ground, because there's also insurance. We have to pay our insurance at school. There's many places where they have to pay their insurance, plus also for their kids and stuff. So let's look at a median somewhere. I mean, I agree, higher than 1050, maybe 11 or 12 or somewhere around there, but I mean, I'm just talking right now the way it numbers. But of course, no, 1050, I think is más o menos. pero
We're
we need to be a
almost
little bit
there.
more.
I think we're almost there
Yeah.
at 1050. But, sorry, man, yes.
Well, Dr. Carranza was
Let
next.
me just really quick in terms, like, and I do understand what Ms. Ramos is saying, because we have to take into account, you know, you have insurance, how much is that cost within, is it $1? Is it $1.50 that we, you know, that we're looking at? You know, we have the French benefits, so I do understand it, and it's very true. We can't go all the way to like $15 an hour, yeah, 15, but they have zero benefits. You know, so that's what I mean, and that's what I do I do agree with her, that we need to find that medium, that based on, okay, let's say, you know, $11, but it's $11 plus French benefits. You know, so I do understand and I do agree with Ms. Ramos on that. Just with her thoughts. Thank
Chair
you.
recognizes Dr. Carranza.
Sorry, Dr. Carranza.
$15 an hour, you have to look at what you compare oranges and grapes.
Yes.
You know, number one, you go to McDonald's, what is the list apart all the way down to the street? How many students do we have lined up over here? We live by the student and we die for the student.
Yes.
And so that's where the salary comes in. Yeah, you can say McDonald's 15, they're paying, but look at the line of cars outside.
Understand?
It could be at midnight and the students still have a line of cars out there.
I see you.
We don't have students lined up over here. So we gotta get, what are you saying?
And
1350 basically will be the best margin there is, but yet if we don't have the students, we're not gonna get
I don't think
$10 over here.
I don't think we can.
No, because you know, they can tell you how many students are coming in, not that many. Okay? Move on to the other one.
Chair recognizes Dr. Tijerina.
Dr. Tijerina, for the record. And just to remind the board, also with certain staff positions, the state doesn't fund us for insurance. So LC adopts 100%, as you both have mentioned on the insurance. So yeah, the fringe benefits also do incur a lot of the budget as well.
Yes.
Chair recognizes Mr. Delgado.
Dr. Marissa, are there any other companies that can do a complete survey that goes over market rates for, with regards to salaries, benefits, and everything that we have to offer here compared to other institutions? I know it's been asked before. I think I ask it every year that we go over this survey, but is there any other surveys that are out there that can consider that?
Dr. Tijerina, for the record, the ones that I've seen the most are coming from TAC that do mainly admin and faculty salaries. I haven't seen too much staff, but I'm pretty sure Veronica Cárdenas can explore also and incorporate. I don't know if Luz will provide additional surveys that, you know, can be incorporated into the next year's analysis.
Any other questions? Chair recognizes Mr. Martinez.
Just one observation, and let me, Laredo College, I would say it's the, I might be wrong, but I personally don't think so. Laredo College as an educational institution and is the only institution in the entire state of Texas that has, in addition to the teacher retirement program, it also has Social Security. So this is, in my opinion, a very, very strong incentive to remain as an employee, because basically, once you retire, you're going to, in effect, be able to be the recipient of 2 retirement funds. The Texas Teacher Retirement System, of which only the state universities and colleges really have. They do not have Social Security, but that is certainly not the case with Laredo College. Just
FYI.
observation.
Yes. Good job.
Any other
Ted.
questions?
No.
Dr. Garanza?
No.
No. Thank you, Ms. Cadena, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We
and,
appreciate it. Thank you.
If you still have questions that I wasn't able to provide the information to, we'll just pass those on to Mr. Vela or another member and send them to me. I'd be more than happy to follow up on those, okay?
We will, Ms. Cadena. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Have a good evening.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Thank you. Mr. Muir, just to be in the safe side, we don't need to vote on A, B, or C, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So the next presentation is 4C, presentation of preliminary draft of the fiscal year 2023 budget. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Good evening, board members. For the record, Cesar Vela, Vice President of Finance. Tonight, we'll go over the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2023. I do want to mention that tonight's presentation, you will not be seeing a balanced budget. We're still working on reviewing some of the items. Also, before we start, I would like to thank publicly all the budget committee members that have been meeting on a weekly basis with both Ms. Gomez and myself to review the requests that came in for the fiscal year 2023 budget. So at this moment, I will go ahead and share my screen. Is everybody able to see the screen?
Yes.
So some of the items that we're going to be reviewing tonight, again, as part of the budget process, as we know, we have 3 funding sources, tuition and fees being one of them, state appropriations and taxes. So we'll go over some of the enrollment data that we've used to make some of our projections. I know that we did have some discussion as part of the finance report on the fund balance. So we have some information on the fund balance and how that is being used to balance next year's budget. We'll go over some of the budget objectives that have been discussed at the committee level, some of the items that the committee, budget committee wanted to address as part of the budget process. Some of the assumptions that are being made at this point to try to balance the budget. We'll review the funding sources. As I mentioned, we have 3 sources of funding for the college. We'll go over the numbers that came in as part of the budget requests. We'll look at the projected revenue based on the preliminary information that we have. We'll look at some of the early recommendations that have been made at the committee level. Again, it is a work in progress. There's still a lot of work to be done. Based on the information that we have received from the appraisal district, we'll look at the tax rate and what the valuations for this coming fiscal year are looking at. And then finally, we'll just go over the timeline of the next steps that will follow once we start getting ready for closer to presenting the board with a recommendation for approval. So when we talk about enrollment, you'll see here on the screen, the gold bar represents the enrollment for our non-dual students. And the black portion of the bar represents the dual students. Why is that information important? Like we've mentioned in the past, we've had discussions that the dual program students do not pay full tuition and fees. As a matter of fact, a big amount of the tuition and fees is waived. However, I do want to stress the importance that although we are not collecting tuition and fee revenue from the students, we are using the contact hours that are being generated by the students to collect state appropriation. So in some way, not all the tuition and fee that is being waived is offset by the state appropriation, but a big portion of it is coming in through the state appropriation. So if you can see, back in 2015, 2016, our dual enrollment was around 3,489 students compared to the 16,413 non-dual students. And you've seen the shift in the last couple of years, right? The duals have increased. However, this particular year, 2021, 2022, we've seen actually an increase in the non-duals. And again, just as a reminder, we have incentivized part of the tuition by offering that tuition waiver through the CARES Act fund that we received. So we've seen that shift this year. We did see an increase in the non-dual students and a decrease in the duals. But again, when we look at our revenue is driven by semester credit hour generation. And again, you've seen, again, looking at the gold bar, that represents the non-dual students. And the black bar represents the dual students. And you'll see how the non-duals have semester credit hours have been decreasing. Again, this fiscal year has been the exception. We saw an increase in 2021, 2022. And these numbers are not final. Again, these are as of yesterday. Again, we still are working on summer session 2 registration. But you'll see that last year we had 98,000 semester credit hours from our non-dual students. And we did see a big decrease, right, from 20 to 21. And it's attributed again to what we experienced with the pandemic. And this year we are seeing an increase again of 104,939 semester credit hours so far this year. So again, about a 6,000 semester credit hour increase. And again, it appears, again, looking at this year, we may have reached that plateau for the dual students. We saw a slight decrease on the non-duals. I'm sorry, on the dual students of 44,000. This year we have 44,902 semester credit hours. Again, this is important because again, when we're looking at the revenue projections, obviously our revenue calculations are based on the 104,000, not on the 44,000 semester credit hours.
Chair passes Ms. Ramos, Mr. Vela for a question.
Yes.
Mr. Vela, can you go back to the slide that has the semester credit hours? So with the 104,939 credit semester hours, each semester credit hour is $50?
For the in-district students, yes, the tuition component, yes.
Could we possibly have some numbers for out of district and in district? If we have 104,939 semester credit hours, how much is out of district? How much is in district? I mean, I don't expect an answer right now, but just something that we can explore.
Yes, we can provide that information. Obviously, I don't have that breakdown right now.
Yes,
When we work at we look at the budget, again, when we look at the foreign students and the out of district, obviously, our majority of students are in district.
Mhm.
So when we do the budget, we factor in only the in-district rates. So obviously being more conservative, doing the $50 per semester per hour rather than using the higher amounts. For the other group, again, smaller group, but certainly we can provide that information. We can provide you the breakdown
Thank
between
you, sir.
in-district, out of district, and foreign.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions on the semester credit hours? No?
No.
When we look at the general operating fund balance, and I know we tend to have the discussion of how much is in the fund balance. What you're seeing here on this slide is the fund balance, based on a cash basis. And again, what do we mean by cash basis? We're not taking into account any liabilities that we have to account for, that are due to the state when it comes to the pension program plan and the health insurance for retirees. At the end of 2021, we had a fund balance of 56,722,611, again, based on just cash basis. We're, for 22, we're projecting that fund balance will be around 61.2 million. But like I mentioned, when we look at GAAP basis, and this is when we look at what liabilities are on our books, we do have two large liabilities that we have on our balance sheets. One is for 42 million, and the other one's for 15 million. The 42 million is for the health insurance portion, and the 15 million is for the pension plan. So when we account for those liabilities, we can see that at the end of 21, our fund balance stood at a negative 2,545,744. Now, for this year, we are projecting that we will have savings, and so we will now be back in the black on paper, have 2.9 million, around 2.9 million in our fund balance. Again, cash basis would be 61.2, on GAAP basis would be 2.9 million. What does that mean? Again, if the state were to say, hey, the liability is due, you need to send out a payment to the state, then right now our fund balance, cash on hand, would be able to pay for that liability without us or without the institution having to borrow to be able to meet that obligation. So again, the board has passed a resolution to maintain 20% of the operating budget in the fund balance. Again, cash basis, we have more than the 20%. When we look at GAAP basis, we don't have that yet. Now we're working towards it on a GAAP basis. Now, the GFOA recommends that whenever an institution has a negative fund balance, that they replenish the fund balance within a 3-year period. Now, again, when we look at GAAP basis, yes, we did have, or we do have a negative fund balance. Now, if we look at the history right now of what we're seeing on this slide, it has taken us about 5 years to go ahead and replenish that fund balance. So at this point, when we look at the fund balance, we're in good position. As Judge mentioned earlier, yes, this is one of the items that the rating agencies look at when they review our credit ratings. Also, SACS looks at our fund balance for accreditation purposes. Both the rating agencies and SACS are aware of these liabilities that we have to report on our books. So when they look at the fund balance, they look at the cash basis portion of it. So because we do have over 20% of cash sitting right now, which is again 56.7 at the end of last year. That is why both the rating agencies and SACS have given us good marks on that. Now, when we look at it from the budgeting standpoint, again, part of the strategy that is used to balance the budget and part of the discussions that we have at the budget committee levels is, okay, looking at how our fund balance has grown, is how can we make sure that we are maintain a healthy fund balance without, again, having excess amounts in it. So we look at one-time purchases that we can address as part of the budget process. And later on, we'll go over some of those items that were discussed at the committee level. So some of the budget objectives, again, that were discussed as part of our committee level meetings. One One of them is, again, maintaining the instructional and student service components of our mission as the highest priorities, making sure that we have the resources that are needed both in the instructional areas and the student services areas to make sure that our services do not suffer and we're able to meet those responsibilities that we have in those areas. Obviously, maintaining, continuing with the emphasis on a strong culture of fiscal accountability by producing a balanced budget. Again, when we talk about balancing the budget, we obviously do not want to present a budget that will be using some of our fund balance or our resources to address reoccurring expenses. And again, making sure that we have the appropriate funding, that we match the revenue, that will provide the funding for strategic investments. And again, looking at new programs that may be coming up, where the demand is, and obviously trying to make sure that we have the revenue to address those items. And lastly, this is obviously was a part of the presentation that Ms. Cadena made earlier, and this was actually came up as part of the committee meetings, is obviously making sure that salaries and benefits, that we optimize that to make sure that we employ and retain the qualified faculty and staff. So that obviously was one of the items that came out as part of our discussions at the budget committee meetings. And again, we heard a little bit about some of the challenges that not just Laredo College is facing, but also other institutions. And again, a lot of it revolved around inflation and how cost of living has gone up. So that was one of the points that was brought up at the committee level, that they wanted to make sure that was addressed as part of the budget. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
No? Okay. So budget assumptions. So when we looked at the expenditures, again, based on the discussions that we had with TASB and again with the executive team and the budget committee, right now the preliminary budget has a 3% general pay increase for all eligible employees. So again, the cost is 936,000, as was previously discussed. It also includes the recommendations by TASB to make sure that we are realign the pay structures to market. And that cost is 117,000. And again, this addresses positions, employees that fall below the minimum. Again, as was discussed earlier, those that are close to minimum, those positions that may be close to the minimum wage, try to make sure that are moved to a more competitive level. And again, that cost would be 117,000. Now, we did review a couple of options. We looked at a 1.5%, a 2.5%, and a 3%. The difference between the 2.5% and the 3% was 153,000. That's why the recommendation was, okay, well, let's go ahead and try to see if we can work the 3%. The other thing with the recommendation is that the lower the general pay increase, the farther the scale or falls. In other words, the distortion between market and what our pay scale is falls a little bit farther down. And as Ms. Cadena mentioned, when we first began this process, a lot of the costs that we incurred at the beginning was actually to realign the pay scales. So we've been able to address most of the positions. We do have some positions that still need some additional adjustments. But if you looked at the presentation that Ms. Cadena made, we are within that 10% that we're targeting. So all of those employee groups are within that 90% of market. So again, but as Ms. Cadena mentioned, there are discussions from other community colleges of offering salary adjustments. So again, it's just trying to see if we can make lessen that difference by trying to do the 3%. This is again reinstating the Camilo Child Development Center operations will be part of next year's budget. The board approved to reinstate the operations earlier this fiscal year. The team is already working on preparing to reopen the center. So that budget has been reinstated into the operating budget. One of the items that has been discussed, and this is one again to address areas of need where resources are needed, specifically in student services and instructional areas, is we're looking at trying to reinstate the vacant positions. We currently have 25 vacancies or vacant positions that are frozen. And those were done to balance this year's budget. So right now, the proposed for the preliminary budget includes adding back those 25 positions at a cost of 1.4 million. And this next item is again using fiscal year 2022 savings to purchase equipment that is needed for next year, and that is approximately 1.3 million. Originally, the equipment requests that came in this fiscal year actually were 2.7 million. Now, when we were reviewing those requests at the budget committee level, we noticed that there were a couple of expenditures for equipment that were actually recurring expenses. So again, we don't want to include those as part of this recommendation because again, we would just want to address one-time purchases, not recurring expenses. So for example, we did see close to about 900,000 for computer equipment. This is obviously to keep with the refreshing those computer labs. And again, those are expenses that we're gonna see every year as we continue to refresh labs. We have a schedule that we follow. So obviously we don't wanna rely on savings to be able to fund for those type of purchases. One other item that was included as part of this, the equipment request and the software request were the licenses for Zoom for this type of meetings. Originally, when we purchased those licenses, or we acquired those licenses, we acquired them using CARES Act funding. That funding will not be available next fiscal year. So what we're doing is we're moving it back to operations. Now, we didn't want to use savings at this point, again, because if it does become a recurring expense, we want to make sure that we properly account for it on the operating budget.
Mr. Vela, Mr. Martinez has a question for you. Go ahead.
Yes.
May I recommend before you go into the revenues, Mr. Vela, and I would like for you to consider, and I would like to also ask members of this board as well as administrative staff, the possibility of increasing law enforcement personnel within our within our police department. We unfortunately, of course, continue to be exposed to the unfortunate situation that happened in Uvalde. And I think it is important that we consider that possibility of increasing the number of law enforcement personnel within our department for several reasons, of which one of them, of course, is the unfortunate, like I already mentioned. But the other thing too is the fact that we are, particularly this particular campus, we are right in border with the river. And I think it is something that administration ought to consider, and that is my recommendation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rangel?
Yes, a couple of questions as well, and tagging on to the judge, I think, yes, I think I don't know if there's a possibility of maybe grants being out there to be able to subsidize the, a certain percentage of pay for these law enforcement positions, if possible. Maybe that's something that we could entertain, if possible, of course. But yes, I do agree with the judge. I think we need to have, especially now that I believe our new president has been wanting to reopen the campus back. I think it's very important that we have a good set of patrol people, patrolling the campuses, because nowadays, you don't even know who is carrying or anything like that. So I think it's very important. The other question that I do have is on the Camilo Prada. I know we're reinstating it, and I think that's a very good program. What's the budget of the Camilo Prada, Mr. Vela?
Camilo Prada, I will need to see the breakdown, Mr. Rangel. We don't have yet we haven't compiled all the information by department. We're looking at individual line items at this point.
But you'll be able to present that to us, right?
Yes, that's included as part of the budget. When we present the budget for approval, we present the budgets by departments. But at this point right now, because we're just working with preliminary information, we don't have that information yet by departments. We're looking at the line items at this point.
Okay, and then are we looking at everything to meet standards with now, I guess COVID and everything, and the Camilo Prada, we're also injecting that into the budget as well, am I correct?
Yes, well, again, yes, the departments have submitted requests, and that has included obviously increases in supplies to make sure that they have all the required supplies for disinfecting and making sure that the facilities are kept.
My last question is, and of course, we're probably gonna see it in the future. Can we also get a list of the reinstatement of vacant positions that we're looking at? I guess to see, where we're actually going to infuse all those positions.
Yes, sir. We can provide that information.
That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Dr. Carranza.
Yes, Mr. Martinez brought it up before I did. One of the things that I've looked at here at this campus, both campuses, because I like to go out there and look over the grounds, being that I'm ex-military, and I see all the open holes. And when I say that, the doors, people can come through. Like right here, we have a road. It goes right next to the railroad. The road. The road. Goes straight to the bridge and out. And also we have the railroad, plus we have the open grounds in the back. And in the other campuses, in our campus over there, it's open. People can go to the brush and else they can hit their campuses because they're gonna go through the brush. So what I was looking at is security. Security, we need to talk to our chief, to the chief, to see what equipment does he need? What does he have? We don't know what he has. We don't know what type of weapons he has. I mean, I don't care what type of weapon he puts on the desk, I'm sure that I'll recognize it. And I'll tell him if it is good or not for the use here, because we're gonna have children on both campuses.
Right.
We're gonna have children at Prada. If they go there, it's gonna be children there. And here, if they open the imaginary, what is it, the imaginary? It's gonna be children here too. Not all security people can work with children. So it is gonna be a burden. I don't know if the ones that are coming here, are they bringing their own security or some of the security, or they're just coming to do business. The thing here is that we need to work with our security people, because we do have young people that walk up and down. How far does our security go out? To what street do they basically patrol? Because we have a lot of kids that are walking back and forth, you see them going over the bridge. So how far does our hand extend out there? How far?
Oh, I've seen them over the bridge. At the South Campus, they pretty much patrol the whole campus and outside because we have a walking.
Yeah, they have to walk in, but they
that
also
we
have a
have-
backyard that's open.
Right, and they've trimmed the
That's what I look
trees.
at.
They've trimmed a lot of the
And it's
trees
small,
that.
but it's smaller too. It's a smaller
True.
campus.
But
This
the
is a
police
big
are always
campus.
there.
This
I
is a
mean,
big camp- no,
there's
they
a
have
presence.
They have a shrub back there that they haven't cleared out.
Well, right now, where they're clearing out is for the CDL. All of that is being
But
cleared.
the thing that we're saying here is the security part. And we need to hire people that know how to be policemen. Look what happened over there at Longley. They stayed outside. And while their children were getting blown away.
It's a difficult decision over there, so.
So, you know, we do need security, strong security. And I think I brought it up to you on time.
Chair recognizes Dr. Tejerina.
Dr. Tejerina, for the record, we certainly have explored a lot of technology tools in-house. You don't see a lot of the supplies here. This is just strictly equipment, but they have received a lot of new tools. Also, they're all certified to do first aid and first aid methods. The other thing is that law enforcement here locally on campus, we don't work alone. It's very important that we meet with Border Patrol, with LPD, because of the activity that we sometimes see. And so definitely as part of the transition, I know Dr. Arrezola, and I'm gonna introduce Dr. Minita, which she already knows a lot of the key players. And needless to say, also Chief Hurd, you know, because of the recent fires that we had. So when we talk about emergencies, I mean, we've also had chemical spills and train, you know, there's a lot of emergency case scenarios that, when you talk about safety, there's so many things other than active shooting. So definitely, I know Dr. Ramirez talked about possibly bringing an individual contracted service to look at just, you know, the different case scenarios again, get updated and reform the different law enforcements because there's different activities that do occur.
And I know at the South, they're already installing all the cameras. So that will be in place as well in the South Campus. Chair recognizes Ms. Vela and then Mr. Martinez.
Do we have those buttons, in the classrooms? The emergency, the panic buttons, yeah. Yeah, we do, okay.
Yes.
We have a panic system and we also have the campus shield that we
Yes.
presented at a board
Yes,
meeting
yeah.
this year. So there's different applications and tools that we're
Tools that we
using.
can-
That are already in place. Mr. Martinez?
I would appreciate it if you could bring us up to date on the DPS interest of the building that we have here. I feel very strongly that once we have the presence of DPS here, that will also be a tremendous asset for this campus. I know that they have shown tremendous interest in that particular building for several reasons. Among them is a basement that they can actually bring in equipment that has to be properly secured, and that basement is ideal for what they had in mind. I think that if we were able to accelerate the use of that facility by DPS moving in their personnel, that and their presence also would frankly add additional presence of security to particularly this particular campus. That's just as an observation.
No, absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Concerns? Mr. Vela, you can continue.
Thank you. When we look at the revenues, again, right now, the proposal is not to increase the tax rate. Actually, the proposed maintenance and operation tax rate that is included in the budget right now, which is 23 cents. is a reduction of 2 cents from the current tax rate. We're also not proposing any tuition and fee increases. Again, the last tuition and fee increase that we had was back in, I want to say 2014. We do have, again, and this is where the valuations are at right now. The preliminary numbers that we received from the Webb County appraisal show an 18% in property valuations. We are going to be maintaining the collection rate at 99%. Again, we've been very consistent. The Webb County tax assessor collector has done a great job of maintaining that rate. So we feel confident that we can budget at the 99% collection rate. And then lastly is we do have identified, like I mentioned, $2.7 million of HERF funds to use for this upcoming fall semester as a tuition waiver incentive. So we will be using 2.7 million right now to balance the budget. When we look at the funding sources, you'll see here represented by in the blue bar, that represents the revenue that is generated by our tuition and fees. Back in 17, well, actually 18, tuition and fees accounted for 16.2 million. Right now, as of April, this last board financial report, we're looking at tuition and fee revenue of 9.8 million. Again, this does not include the summer session 2 yet, but you see that we have experienced a big drop right now in tuition and fee revenue. As far as state appropriation has been consistent, and that is represented by the orange bar. You see that in the 18-19 biennium, state appropriations were 10.2 million. For the 2021 biennium, there were an increase of an increase, and the appropriations were 11.3 million. For this fiscal year, we are again projecting to receive 11.3 million from the state. Again, the number that you're seeing there for 2022 is as of this last financial report, so it's we're looking at about 6.9 million so far. The gold bar represents our other revenue, and that is a small portion of our budget. However, in 21, you did see a big increase. Typically, the revenues that are collected from other sources are 1.3 million a year. But again, the 6.4 million that you're seeing for this last fiscal year is due to the collection of lost revenue that was allowed under the HERF funding, and that was for 2021. For this year, you'll see another 4.6 million, and that is again the tuition waivers that we are going to be charging to the HERF funding at the end of the year, as Ms. Gomez mentioned during the financial report. And then the gray bar represents our tax revenue, and you can see that that is mostly about 62% of our budget is coming from our tax revenue. So for this fiscal year, we're at 38.4 million in tax revenue. When we look at percentage-wise, again, the gold bar represents other, and that usually is about 1% of our budget is derived from other sources. We did see the spike in 21.2, and that is attributed to the 6.4 million that we charged the HERF funding for lost revenue during the pandemic. The red line represents our state appropriations, and we've stayed very consistent around 18-20%. The gray line represents our tuition and fee revenue, and we see that from 18 to 2023, we've seen well, to 2022 we saw a drop. We did see we're seeing an increase for 23, and again, that's attributed to our non-dual increase in semester credit hour generation and headcount. And we hope that that trend continues in the next coming year. And then the blue line represents our state, our local tax revenue. And as I mentioned, we're at 62% for this coming budget. So 62% of our revenue right now is coming from local taxes. Any questions on the revenue breakdown?
Chair recognizes Mrs. Ramos.
Mr. Vella, if you add all of those items in the 21-22 general fund sources of revenue, is it 55.6 million that we've received in revenue? Right? On that last line?
Yeah, you're talking about
The total amounts?
this one here?
Yeah, the total amounts of all of them?
Yeah, for 22, we've received 55.6 million.
Okay. And our budget was?
I'm sorry?
Our budget was 56?
No, our
61.
budget for, I'm sorry, our budget for 22 is 61,700,000. So as of the date of the last financial report, we have recorded 55.6 million. Again, as Ms. Gomez mentioned, we still have 4 months of operations.
Yes, sir.
So we have state appropriations, we have some more session 2, and we do have the last 4 months of tax collections that will be coming in. Again, when we look at the revenue budget, our projection is that we are going to be at the 61 million. So we don't see any, at this point, any concerns that we will not meet our target of 61.7 when it comes to the revenue.
I did want to ask questions to Dr. Taylor. So my concern is that rate of inflation. I mean, I'm really worried about our tax basis and, you know, how can we pre-plan? How can we start talking about those things within the next couple of months that are coming up? Because everybody's going to be affected one way or another, right? So in looking at how much money we have, how much money has come in, and then for the next semester, we are offering that incentive, so it should help out. I don't want to lose sight of that. You know what I mean? That rate of inflation it worries me, you know, for everybody.
Dr. Tijerina, for the record, and CESA can validate it as well as the budget committee. We did allocate inflation rates as well with everything from travel to equipment to salaries for next year with the anticipation that, you know, it's going to increase.
It's gonna go up. Thank you. Just for the record. Okay. Any other questions? You can continue, Mr. Vela.
Thank you. The next item is going over some of the budget requests that came in as part of the budget process. And these were the numbers that the budget committee has been looking at. We've been looking at the line items. Again, first line item that we looked at was line item number 71, which is equipment. But as you can see here from the requests that have come in, our budget right now this fiscal year stands at 61,706,837. There's a total of 6.3 million in new or additional requests that came in for fiscal year 2023. So right now, the initial budget request or the initial budget stands at 68,031,839. Now, when we look at salaries, we are seeing a $2.9 million increase on 22 to 23. The reason for that, again, we are incorporating that recommendation from TASB of the 3%. And the other part of it is it includes the vacant positions that were frozen as part of the 2022 budget. So also we do have a couple of line items that were requested as part of the budget process by the instructional units. And that is line items that are currently still under review. But there were a couple of increases when it comes to overload requests, and, summer pay. So those line items are currently being reviewed, and we do expect, for adjustments, or reductions to be made to those requests once, the data is reviewed by the committee, and also the academic, units. As far as fringe benefits, at this point right now, we have not received the information from the state on the health insurance. So, right now, we're currently showing, the current premium rates that we have for this fiscal year. We should be getting more information, in the next 2 weeks. Ms. Gomez and I will be, attending the TACO conference, and, part of that conference, we do, meet with TRS and ERS, on any changes that will be coming up for next fiscal year. So we'll get an indication of whether we'll see any changes to, the benefit packages that are offered to the state. Equipment, you can see that the request that came in, 1.9 million. Now, we have already made some adjustments, and there is already a recommendation that, is part of tonight's meeting. And again, that is to, allow us to use 1.3 million of the fund balance to purchase, those, the equipment that is needed for operations for fiscal year 2023. Now, just to mention that, right now with the discussion about safety, there are a couple of requests, that are for campus police. One of those items, is, their, radio communication equipment. It is included as part of the 1.3 million that is being, moved forward, or being recommended by the committee. And that is, to upgrade the equipment so that, campus police can have communication with the outside entities. Right now, the, communication equipment that we currently have only allows communication between our campus police, which is, here at the main campus and the south campus. With the upgrade of the equipment, they will be able to communicate directly using our, their radio communications, with the radio police department, and the sheriff's department. Also included in that request, I know we mentioned about, the weapons, and they are requesting to replace some of the, weapons that they have. And this was an item that was discussed at the budget committee, and this obviously happened, before the unfortunate, events that happened in Uvalde, and there was a discussion because as part of the budget request, there's a couple of rifles and guns that are being requested to replace all the equipment for campus police, but also part of the supplies that are being requested is ammunition. And so there was a discussion, why do we need ammunition? Why do we need so much ammunition? And again, unfortunately, because of the situations that occur, we do need to make sure that we properly put our campus police officers. So you'll see those items, and we'll go over those items when we review the equipment listing. That is part of the next agenda item. As far as the other line item that has been discussed right now at the budget committee, that was contracted services, line item 78. And again, this includes utilities, includes contracted services for maintenance and for IT operations. So we have been reviewing those items. There have been some reductions or adjustments that have been made. And those will be presented to the board as we move forward in the next draft that we'll be bringing over to the board for review. I do want to mention that also as part of the, and I forgot about this one, as part of the equipment request, there was an equipment request that was submitted to repair some of the taco phones that we currently have. That particular line item was removed from the budget request because we're going to be addressing that through the deferred maintenance funds that we have. Again, the board approved us to use 20% of savings, annual savings, to go towards deferred maintenance projects. And this is one of the projects that has been identified to be addressed using those funds. Most likely, we're working with IT and campus police to have this item ready for board approval at the June 30th meeting.
Chair recognizes Dr. Carranza, and Mr. Vela, he has a question.
Sure.
I'll wait till the other one, when he brings up, okay, I'll bring it up right now. Right here, I was watching where it says police. The police department is getting what, 2 rifles and 2 shotguns.
Oh, but that's on the next item.
We're not there yet.
Okay, that's what I said, we'll bring it up in the side.
Yeah, we're not there yet. That's it.
Any questions right now, what Mr. Vela spoke about? Chair recognizes Ms. Elizondo.
The proposed equipment request is 1,214,000, and we are estimating a change of 1,158,000. Where are the other line items that are included under this category? For the 643 million, I'm sorry, 643,000.
Yes, that's a good question, Ms. Elizondo. Not all the line item 71 is actual equipment. There are some line items there that deal with the maintenance for the equipment. And we also have a couple of leases that are addressed through line item 71. So the 1.3 million and the difference between the 1.3 and the 1.9 are those items. Those are the 600,000 are recurring items. The 1.3 million that you're seeing as part of the recommendation from the committee, those are one-time items that are being proposed to be purchased using savings.
We're discussing line item 71, and it's a total of 1,158,000. I just wanted to know where
The difference, yeah.
Yeah, the difference is those line items, like I mentioned, you got maintenance agreements that are related to equipment, you got some leases. We have leases for campus police vehicles that are part of the line item 71, and physical plants. So, again, they're not included with the 1.3 because they are recurring items, and we do want to make sure that they are accounted as part of the operations.
Thank you.
That is,
Anyone else? Okay. You can continue, Mr. Vela.
okay. So when we look at the projected revenue, again, tuition and fees, 9.9 million for this coming fiscal year. Again, it is based on what we're seeing right now with the semester credit hour generation. For the fall semester, we're not incorporating an increase or a decrease. We're saying right now we're being conservative with the tuition waiver. We're saying we should be able to maintain the current semester credit hours that were generated this fiscal year. We are being conservative for spring and summer. We are projecting a decrease. And again, this is just for budget purpose. Obviously, there are great efforts right now to recruitment and enrollment to increase the non-dual numbers. As far as state appropriations, again, the state for this coming year has already allocated 11.2 million for Laredo College. At this point, we don't have any indications that there'll be any state costs, so we are again projecting that we will be receiving 11.2 from the state. Tax revenue, based on, again, the rate that was presented in the earlier slide, and using the valuation that the preliminary numbers from that were submitted by the district, we're projecting that that will be 40,968,000. And then other revenue of 3.6 million, again, 2.7 coming from CURB funding. For total projected revenue, 55,794,364. So, I'm sorry, was there a question?
No.
It's coming.
So when we look at So when we look at the numbers, the initial request and the projected revenue, when we began the process, back in March, we were looking at a $2.2 million deficit. Again, the budget request came in at 68,031,839. And the projected revenue, again, what we're projecting based on the information that we currently have is 65,794,364. So again, this is the number that, the budget committee, needs to look at to try to match the revenues to the expenditure. So again, part of the process is making that recommendation to, use 1.3 million to purchase the equipment. And you'll see, on this one slide, again, how the budget compares to, previous years. So right now for 23, again, looking at the revenue, we're looking at 65.7 million, a budget of 65.7 million. This current year's budget stands at 61.7. Back in 21, again, during the pandemic, we did make those reductions, and our budget was at 57,891,000. Again, this is preliminary, subject to change, of course. So right now we're looking at 65.7, and this is based on the projected revenue that we have. But obviously, there are some recommendations. Again, a lot more discussion will happen during the next coming months. And that number most likely will be changing as we continue this process. So the next items are some of the items that the budget committee has already reviewed. Like I mentioned earlier, it is a work in progress. There are still some line items that need to be reviewed. Again, looking at what has come in already, based on our projections, we're looking at 2.2 million. That the difference between the revenue and the expenses that came in. One of the recommendations is to use savings of 1.3 million to address the equipment requests that came in for next fiscal year. We have identified a couple of line items in the contracted services. So approximately 371,775, a reduction based on the initial review of contracted services. And that has one of those items was in utilities. And the other item, like I mentioned earlier, was utilities and it was mostly utilities. And the other item was on the auto insurance. When we were reviewing the accounts, we noticed that there were two different departments that had budgeted for that line item. So again, we went ahead and made that adjustment. And the other item is a reduction to the maintenance agreements. And again, this is 15,000. It's a small amount at this point, but again, it is part of that line item 71. And one of the things that Ms. Gomez did this fiscal year as part of the committee, she went ahead and compiled information for the last 4 fiscal years, not counting 21, because of the pandemic, we felt that it was not going to be a true indication of how the operations of the institution go. But she gave us 4 years of information of expenditures, and then we got an average and then compared it to the requests that were coming in. So that is part of the process that is being reviewed by the committee. And that's how they were able to identify this, again, this small amount right now, 15,000. But there are still other line items that we still need to review to make sure that we can bring those requests down. So the total adjustments so far total 1,701,390. So when we look at the adjusted budget request, we are at 66,330,449. So right now we're looking at a shortfall of $536,085 from the original 2.2 million. Again, there's still work to be done by the committee, and like I mentioned, we will be meeting this next month until we have a balanced budget to present to the board. When we look at the tax rate and valuation information and the preliminary information, the 2021 certified taxable value is 16,152,838,493. The projected or the initial numbers that we got from the Webb County Appraisal District stand at 19,116,656, 930. That's a $2.9 billion increase or 18% increase. When we look at the M&O and the debt rate, currently our total tax rate stands at 30.319441, of which 0.252022 is for operations, and the 6 cents are for debt service. Using the valuations that we have received, that rate would drop to, the M&O rate would drop to 23 cents, and the debt rate would drop to 5 cents. For a total rate of 0.284578. That's a 3-cent decrease overall, for a 10.91% decrease to the tax rate. Now, what does that mean to the taxpayer, right? Based on the numbers that we had last year on the average homestead, the taxable value, the average was 159,754. Using the 18%, excuse me, the 18% adjustment or increase, right now, that number would be at 188,510. Roughly about a $29,000 increase. When we apply the tax rate to those values, in 21, the tax on the average homestead would be $510.32. The projected for 22 would be $536.46. $26 increase or a 5% increase for the year. Again, these are preliminary numbers. Obviously, the Webb County Appraisal District has to finalize the process, and this, the certified taxable value will not be available until probably the last week of July. At that point, we'll make the necessary adjustments. Any questions? I'm sorry, any questions on the tax, preliminary tax rate and valuation information?
No questions.
And lastly, just the timeline. Again, the certification of the tax rules, we're projecting that we'll get it at the week of July 22nd. At that point, based on whatever decision is made when it comes to the tax rate, we'll have to do a 72-hour notice for the open meetings or open meetings notice. On the 28th, obviously, have the certification of the anticipated collection rate, the calculation of the effective and rollback tax rate, and again, just a vote on the proposed tax rate. The meetings for August the 5th and the 11th and the 12th would all be dependent on the decision made on the 28th of July. So again, those are all tentative to change. And again, we are, again, projecting that we'll have the balanced budget and the final draft for board consideration at the August 25th meeting. And that is the meeting to adopt the tax rate and the fiscal year 2023 budget. Any questions or concerns regarding the timeline?
No questions? No questions, Mr. Vela.
Okay, well, that concludes the preliminary update on the budget. At this time, if there are any questions or comments, I'd like to address.
Not at this time, Mr. Vela, but I'm sure if we come up with questions, you will be receiving a call.
Thank you, and we'll work on the items that were that the board wanted for us to bring back, so we'll compile the information and get it ready for
The next meeting?
yes.
Okay. The next item I have is 4D, and that's approval to use fiscal year 2022 savings to purchase fiscal year 2023 equipment. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Yes, again, the agenda item is, I'm asking that the board approve the purchase of equipment in the amount not to exceed 1,314,615 using fiscal year 2022 savings. There is a listing of the equipment that was provided with the agenda item, and I'm trying to put it on my screen right now.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair, I
We
move
have
that
it.
we formally approve this request.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Judge Martinez, and I have a second by Mr. Delgado. Discussion. So I'm gonna, Dr. Carranza was first.
Well,
Since-
you know, the amount of money for the police, security police. I see here that you have, 2 rifles, 2 shotguns and, well, 2 and 2 for the campuses, for both campuses. It's 5,000. Is this the type of equipment that's needed right now? Or do we need to meet with the chief, himself, the security chief? Because these weapons, you know, I don't know, who came up with it, was it the chief, or it was put together by the department and said, this is what we need? I would say maybe they might need other protection for themselves, a better vehicle, a stronger vehicle, is one thing. If they have slim to little trucks, I don't think it doesn't go very far. You know, and do they have at least security to protect themselves if somebody gets to shoot at them? And which we wouldn't want to see that happen, but it's been happening in the campuses now. We need to arm our police force here in the campus. Because now the parents are going to be looking as to what type of security we have. Parents are now, after this will happen with children, they're going to be looking, do they send their kids all the way down here to this corner to get educated, or they send them upstream, up there, up north? Eventually, if we're not careful, 3 years ago, there was a 2-year college tried to move into this property. Not this property, but into Laredo. I mean, I consider that property our property. So, but we were able to get them away. But what I'm saying now is that we need to take care of our security force to make sure that the parents feel that the kids will be safe at least.
All right. So Dr. Arizola, did you have something to comment on
Yes,
what Dr. Carranza was asking?
David
And I'll
Arizola,
ask, Ms.
interim
Elizondo.
provost, and vice president for academic affairs and compliance and risk, all those things.
In
But,
order to
See the
decide.
just to your point, Dr. Carranza, so this budget was prepared, just to get an idea of the timing, back in February, right? And it was prepared by the department, working with the chief. So at that time, that is what the department was requesting. One of the bigger items that you see on that list is our communication system, right? So the campus police department has requested an enhanced communication system that will allow us not only to communicate with each other, say, between campus police officers, but also with outside entities. So if we need to work with them, or we need them to work with us on an emergency situation, it's gonna become a lot easier. Now, all that being said, in light of the tragic events of Uvalde over the last couple of weeks, or weeks ago, right? We have to kind of take in a look at and reevaluated some of our needs and identified some pockets of money that we can use to enhance our equipment now, right? So again, this request, even though we're asking the board to approve it to purchase it now, we are going to make an additional request, ballistic shields, and forgive me if I massacre some of these terms, but breach equipment, also, as we're reviewing and assessing and learning from some of the events, we are going to make some additional requests to enhance the safety and security of our campus.
And a lot of this equipment they should already have.
Yes, this is going to be in addition
It's
to,
nothing new.
right, no, this is going to be
I
in
don't know
addition.
who was the chief prior to this, but he should have had the people prepared.
Yeah, this is going to be in addition to what they already have.
You know, but, you know, if I sit here and I talk about it, but I've seen it happen, and, but also colleges, you know, just because it's a college doesn't mean that, somebody's going to come up and shoot it up. We had it
Hopefully not.
where they had gone into the colleges. and
Take it back.
you know,
Knock on wood.
And it's, we're doing our best to kind of prepare for those things. One of the things that I've asked the chief and then we were working on is on getting additional training for our officers, right? Because we know one of the, a training that you attended 2 weeks ago is completely different now because of everything that happened. So we are going to get some additional training for our officers. And then the other thing that we're going to do is our officers will be training the staff. And we're going to schedule visits for every building and go over some worst case scenarios, make sure that they're ready, make sure that they're aware how to use the panic systems and so on and so forth. So we're doing our very best to make sure that people feel safe and that people are safe.
Well, that's one of the major areas to look at.
Ms. Elizondo?
Yes, this is current equipment request proposal is allocating $5,000 for the campus police on the main campus and the campus police in the south. So a total of $10,000 in order for us to expedite or move on with the motion that Mr. Rangel made in terms of approving this. Can we allocate additional funds right now in order for us to, I mean, we have $5 million in 2022 projected savings, we're only utilizing 1.3 million. That gives us a balance of $4 million. So I think based on all the comments from the judge, Rangel, and Dr. Carranza, I think that we do have funds in order to provide to both campuses.
Madam Chair, I would agree with an amendment to my motion. I would agree to what is being recommended by Ms. Elizondo.
Okay. Let me just verify. So Dr. Arizola, you're working on all the additional equipment that is required and you're gonna come back and ask us for it. Is that correct? With a total amount that's gonna be due? Now, Mr. Vela, can we, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Mira as well, can we put more money into the, the 1.3 that we're going to agree to fund? Can we put more money in there from the savings? And maybe that's Mr. Mira's question.
If I may,
Yes.
I would recommend that the chief and Dr. Desola and the staff, police officers, complete their assessment of the equipment.
And we can have a special board meeting to approve that.
We could add it to the next board meeting.
Or a
again,
special board meeting. I mean, this is very important because of the security reason for both our campuses. So if Dr. Adesola has an update pretty quickly, I mean, we can, Mr. Muir, we can have a special meeting for just that to approve additional monies. Or can we do it now?
Well,
We amend it.
you can definitely have a special board meeting to approve additional monies. The agenda item that you're discussing right now is to approve fiscal year 2022 savings to purchase equipment. So there is a list of equipment that has been provided to you by administration. If you want to add to that, you'd have to come back and do that at the next meeting with another list before you.
So it can't be amended at this time.
Well, you could, you have a certain amount of money, I think it's 314,650 for this equipment. So if there was additional equipment, you could approve that, but there's not a list of additional equipment for you to approve at this time. So, but you could certainly hold a special meeting next week and address that issue or whatever time.
Right. So once Dr. Adesola and the chief of police, and I'm sure you're expediting this quickly. So as soon as you have it, let Dr. he didn't know, and we'll just call a special board meeting and bring everybody back with the information you're gonna have. So Mr. Rangel had a question?
I did.
Go ahead, and then I'll have Ms. Elizondo again.
Okay. Yes, I do agree with that. I think it's best that we allow staff to do their due diligence on working and coming back with a recommendation. We don't want to tie them down to a certain amount of money and not, or limit them as well. Allow them to do that, but then also be cognizant on, we do have to save some money as well. So, my other question is, I'm looking at all this, and I know that in one of our finance meetings, we had discussed on the inventory software. Have we looked into that? We're just purchasing 1.3 million that needs to have inventory. And where are we at with that? I know that, there was a huge conversation with that committee that, I guess we're not doing the best checks and balances within our inventory, both on the main and south campus. So I know that there was comments that, it was around maybe $12,000-15,000 software or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure. But are we integrating something like that? Because it's very important that we have our full inventory of what we're purchasing, for the college.
If I may, Mr. Rangel, yes, actually, you don't see it on the budget request for next year because we're addressing that this year. We are already evaluating softwares, and both the property inventory manager and Mr. Chavez have already been looking at some of the options available. And I think there's already a recommendation from them that will be made. So we are going to be acquiring a software for inventory purposes. Again, it's not included in the 2023 budget because we are, as part of the audit response, we are addressing it this fiscal year. So we'll be acquiring that software.
So then you'll be taking that item to the finance committee meeting this month then?
Yes, I just need to verify it with Mr. Chavez and.
Or in July. I mean, I think it's very crucial that we do have a good inventory process and for the college. So make sure that either it's brought to the finance committee meeting either in June or July.
We certainly will. Just like I said, they had already evaluated. I believe they had looked at 3 different options, and they already have one that they want to bring forward to the committee to recommend.
Okay.
And again, when we looked at the budget, the decision was don't put it in the 2023 budget. Let's acquire it now.
Okay. Okay, thank you. My last question is to Dr. Gasola. On the communication system that we're purchasing, which is a total of $274,000. That one, are we gonna be connected to Laredo Police Department? Are we gonna be connected to all those systems? Because I know that the city does allow you to tag on to their system. Is this what we're doing with this?
That is correct. We are going to be within their system. We're already working with the police chiefs in all those areas to make sure that we're able to connect.
Okay, and I don't know if you can answer the question right now, but does it include EMS? Does it include, I don't know, correct, you could let us know later.
I want to say
State
yes,
troopers, border
verify.
patrol. Can you let us know on what entities are gonna fall into this? Because again, I think this is great, but being that we're on the border, I think we need to be able to, if possible, have good communication on the radio with BP, and all these entities. Hopefully we can, and if not, and if it takes maybe a little bit more money than the 274 to increase that, because I know it's different components that you buy. But if for whatever reason, we do need to buy maybe a specific more component that's a little bit more expensive, but allows you to tag on to all these entities, I think it's important that we do, especially because of, again, the tragedies that we've been, seeing. We want to make sure that we have a good communication with everybody, within that radio system. If we're gonna upgrade it, right now, might as well do it, all of it.
I want to say that the system that we chose was comprehensive to include all those things, but I will check and I will verify with Chief Castro and then get back to you.
Okay. That's all I have.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Mr. Mayor.
I was going to ask clarification on the motion, because I know a motion was made and then seconded.
Right.
And then there was an amendment made. I don't know if the amendment was seconded or not.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so then the only thing on the table now is the motion to approve item 4D.
Right, right. But we're still in discussion.
Yes.
Ms. Elizondo.
Dr. Arrizabalaga, can you please talk to the police chief, because 4 firearms for $5,000. I don't think they're great quality. but
Okay,
just, you know.
we'll double check.
Chair recognizes Ms. Ramos.
So I'm gonna go towards the other side. There's too much talking about stuff like that, so. So I have a question.
We already have a second. We're still in discussion. No, we're not adjourning.
We gave you the chance to talk, so.
Okay,
We have
your
a total
discussion.
amount of $10,929 for the printers in the different departments. So my question for Mr. Vela is, have we considered having a leasing copier printer type in the departments? That's one. And then number two, have we considered a 5-year plan to be able to replace some of these older versions, including, but not limited to, the drums and the toner that each of them will reflect upon? And the reason I tell you this is not because I micromanage, but because I take care of stuff like this at school. And so I have a 5-year plan about my school, and I try to figure out how much is being spent on each department. But we use a leasing copier a lot so that we can save the money on the drums and the toner. And each department is getting, more or less a printer that's give or take between $709 and maybe $1,500. So I'm just having a discussion about some of the considerations, maybe leasing is better. And in the shredder, isn't it better to outsource the shredder instead of buying a shredder? I don't know. Those are just thoughts that I had, so.
Yes, if I may, some of the printers that are being requested are in specialized areas, like for example, I believe that there are some in my area in the finance division. Some of these printers are used to print out the accounts payable checks and the payroll checks. But you are correct, in other departments, we've done away with printers and we're using the centralized copiers.
Okay.
To keep the costs down. As far as exploring leasing printers, we're trying to move away from the leases at this point right now. We've had conversations with Mr. Chavez on addressing some of the leases that we have. It has become, again, as part of the operations, there is a high cost right now on the leases. And again, with interest rates going up at this point right now, obviously we are reconsidering at least whenever possible, we're trying to address additional equipment by just outright purchasing it. But when it comes to the printers, yes, we have looked at using the centralized copiers, and a lot of the departments are already doing that.
Okay.
Again, some of these requests are coming from departments that are again, when you're looking at printing student records or documents that are confidential, or the printing of account payroll checks, stuff like that, those are typically done at a printer, not the copiers.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion? I'm gonna call for the vote. And we're voting on the approval to purchase the 2023 equipment. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So do I have a motion
Motion
to
to
adjourn?
adjourn.
I have a motion by Mr. Rangel, I have a second by Ms. Ramos, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Additional, we are now adjourned, so, but this is additional information that I have just received, that Congressman Henry Cuellar has won by 282 votes, just FYI.
Congratulations. Adjourn.